Here's what's coming up on the world today, including 4 children injured in France, knife attack. Vatican says Pope Francis doing well after the first night in hospital. Welcome back from the break. An attacker with a knife has injured 4 young children and 1 adult in the Alpine town of Annecy before being arrested by police. According to the police, 6 people, including 4 children, have been injured. 2 of the children have suffered life-threatening injuries. UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says one of the children injured in the knife attack is a British national. Police have confirmed that the suspect is a 31-year-old Syrian who had refugee status in Sweden. According to media reports, he had a wife and a 3-year-old child. French President Emmanuel Macron said on Twitter, this attack was an absolutely cowardly attack and that his thoughts were with the victims and families. Similarly, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak echoed the views of his French counterpart, calling the attack a truly cowardly act.
And before I speak about the work that we have done here today, I'd just like to briefly make some comments about the terrible act of violence that we saw perpetrated in Annecy this morning. Of course, our thoughts are with the victims and the families, and we stand ready to support the French authorities in whichever way we can. Also aware that one of the children injured was a British national. We have already deployed British consular officials who are travelling to the area to make themselves available to support the family. And of course, we stand in strong solidarity with the people of France at this terrible time.
The Vatican said Pope Francis was doing well after his first night at the hospital following abdominal surgery. The Vatican said in a brief statement that more information would be released. The 86-year-old pontiff underwent a 3-hour operation in a Rome hospital to repair a hernia, which doctors said was successful enough that he should have no limitations on his travels and other activities after his recovery. The Vatican said all of the Pope's private and general audiences had been canceled until June 18 as a precautionary measure. And smoke from hundreds of wildfires burning in eastern Canada has descended upon major U.S. cities, casting an eerie haze over the skyline. In New York City, the George Washington Bridge, an iconic symbol connecting New York to New Jersey, was shrouded in a thick veil of smoke. The air quality has deteriorated significantly, prompting authorities to issue advisories. People were being urged to limit their time outdoors, and those with respiratory issues have been advised to wear masks. Wildfire smoke has been linked with higher rates of heart attacks and strokes, and increases in emergency room visits for asthma and other respiratory conditions, and eye irritation, itchy skin, and rashes, among other problems. Meanwhile, New York Mayor Eric Adams urged New Yorkers to stay at home to avoid breathing hazardous air as smoke from Canadian wildfires drifted south, blanketing cities in a thick yellowish haze. The smoke was wafting over the U.S. northern border from Canada, where hundreds of forest fires have scorched 9.4 million acres and forced 120,000 people from their homes in an unusually early and intense start to Canada's wildfire season.
Another update on what we are facing as a result of the wildfire smoke from Canada. We have all seen, smell, and the pictures really speaks volumes as you look at the Empire State Building that's engulfed in this smoke. At 5 p.m., the air quality index hit 484, a hazardous condition that we are facing. On the levels of health concern that is clearly alarming for all New Yorkers. This is the highest level index of our knowledge since the 60s. Conditions are likely to continue to deteriorate through 9 to 10 p.m. tonight, while air quality conditions are anticipated to temporarily improve later tonight through tomorrow morning. They're expected to deteriorate further tomorrow afternoon and evening as smoke moves back over the city. As a result, we are encouraging New Yorkers to stay home indoors tonight and tomorrow whenever possible.
This is extremely dangerous air outside. This is an environment where we are recommending every single New Yorker, if they don't have to, stay indoors. That's a very strong recommendation. And for us to make that recommendation, the quality of the air must be extremely poor. What is the result of that? Lung conditions exacerbated, heart conditions exacerbated, mucosal membranes from the eyes, the nose, the ears irritated, burning, throat burning. So we recommend stay indoors. It's the safest way. This is an extremely high level. As the mayor said, we haven't seen levels like this in decades. We also haven't seen levels rise this quickly, this suddenly, over the last 24 hours, almost ever. Because, frankly, we don't get wildfire smoke here in this way like this.
Maria Bird, our Washington correspondent, joins us now. Hi, Maria. Let's get straight into it. Now, the smoke from the wildfires have descended upon major U.S. cities. Today, New York had the worst air quality in the world. Can you give us an update from the East Coast? What are you able to see, if anything?
Well, this has been a very hazy couple of days. As you exit your homes or anywhere that you are indoors, you see a smoke haze. Actually, yesterday and into earlier today, you could actually smell smoke. Smells like something is burning, almost like maybe, someone's doing a barbecue or campfire. So you can actually even smell it. And so the advisories today are a code red, which signifies that it is not safe for children, elderly, and those with respiratory conditions to be outdoors. All the major school districts have not allowed children to do recess or any outdoor activities over the last few days. And this is due to the fact that there is such poor air quality that they're even advising individuals to wear the N95 mask. So it's a little different than when we were in COVID. It was wearing the mask indoors and taking the mask off outdoors, but now they're advising you to wear the mask outdoors to prohibit the insulation of that smoke.
And Maria, wildfire smoke has been linked with higher rates of heart attacks, as we mentioned earlier, and strokes. What are health authorities advising?
Health authorities are focusing in on those who are at high risk. So those who, as you mentioned, might have heart conditions, those that might be dealing with some sort of asthmatic or any respiratory condition, to really stay indoors. And even when you're indoors, to have some sort of filtration system. Many homes and businesses have put filters indoors as a result of COVID to try to filter the air. So obviously those are going to be highly important during these times. And just to stay from outdoors, because they said that it's almost as if someone is smoking an entire pack of cigarettes when they are spending extensive amounts of time outdoors.
Can we anticipate more smoky days in the Northeast this summer?
They're expecting this to subside by the end of the weekend. But again, as you all mentioned earlier, this is the beginning of wildfire season in Canada. So what we will expect, I think this is an unprecedented experience for the East Coast and other parts of the United States. And so unfortunately, if there are additional wildfires that occur, will we experience this again? And I think many in the U.S. are not prepared for that, but it's something I think we must consider going into these hotter months, which at risk put anyone that has respiratory conditions at risk just due to the humidity and extreme temperatures that we experience.
What kind of support is the U.S. providing?
Well, right now, the measures have been, as you mentioned, New York, they canceled schools today, advising individuals to work from home, to stay indoors. So that's going to be the initial level of support. I think it's going to depend, as you asked earlier, about will we be experiencing this over a longer period of time? I think that if we experience this past the weekend, there will be measures put in place, especially those who are homeless, those who are working outdoors for extensive periods of time. They will probably be putting some state of emergencies in place to ensure the safety of individuals for their health.
My final question to you, Maria. What are hospitals like in the area? Are they seeing an impact from all of this?
Yes, hospitals are seeing an increased number of individuals experiencing either respiratory conditions, especially those who are asthmatic and have other lung conditions. So they're experiencing increased rates of that. And also, for some reason, there's some like a dermatitis type skin condition that people are experiencing as a result of the smoky conditions. And so we'll continue probably to see over the next few days, because yesterday was the first real day that we were aware of what was actually happening with the air quality. And so I think we'll begin to see between today, tomorrow, the real effects of this, as we're not expected to see the subside until later this weekend.
All right. Thank you very much, Maria Bird, our Washington correspondent.
Okay.
Home Affairs ministers from the European Union's 27 member states met to try get across the line an elusive agreement on how to share out the responsibility of caring for refugees and immigrants. A tentative deal on the table comes after years of damaging feuds between the EU states since their cooperation collapsed in acrimony in 2015. As more than 1 million people, mostly fleeing the war in Syria, arrived across the Mediterranean. The expected agreement would allow countries unwilling to receive irregular migrants and refugees arriving ad hoc to Europe to instead help their hosting peers through cash, equipment, or personnel. It would introduce a new expedited border procedure for those deemed unlikely to win asylum in order to prevent them from lingering inside the EU for years before they are forced to leave after losing appeals.
I think we have a balanced proposal on the table with a lot of support. So I hope that we will see that member states are ready to take this decision today. I think it's important to underline that this agreement is not a zero-sum game. It's not about winners and losers. If we work together, when we work together to manage migration together in the European Union, we are all winners. We have seen that. We are so strong.
I am sure that I am going to get that agreement. We have been talking a lot for the last 5 years, 6 years. So I think that today it's the moment to reach that agreement. I am sure that we are going, because if we don't reach that agreement, I think that all of us will be losers.
If there should be an agreement, it is today. I think that we are, in my opinion, so close that there is no acceptable reason not to walk the last mile.
And over in Sudan, where a massive fire broke out yesterday near a military complex containing an arms factory in southern Khartoum. The fire that began in the morning suddenly grew in size before sunset on Wednesday as explosions were heard. Some locals say the fires were caused by the bombing of the fuel and gas depots, and that houses in the area have been hit by shells and stray bullets. In some of the fire-cast fighting for weeks in its conflict with the RSF, Sudan's army has battled to defend the factory. In the 8th week of a power struggle with the regular army, witnesses say the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces attacked the heavily protected, sprawling Yarmouk complex. The group posted videos today in which it claimed to have taken over a warehouse filled with weapons and ammunition, as well as several entry points to the site. Reports say the army used airstrikes to try and repel the RSF advance. And medical systems are on the brink of collapse in Sudan's greater capital area as 70% of medical institutions there were shut down due to the festering conflicts and disruptions. The protraction of the hostilities that has caused scarcity of medical resources and supplies for humanitarian aid. Sudan's greater capital area is composed of Khartoum, Omdurman, and Khartoum North. And the still struggling hospitals there are facing disruptions of power, fuel, medicine, and professional personnel. According to officials working for the last hospital still operating in Omdurman, they mainly rely on their own generators as the city only offers a few hours of power and water supply each day. Ahmed Zait, an official with the Al Now Teaching Hospital, says medical supplies such as antibiotics and painkillers have already or are about to run out, forcing them to suspend some services such as obstetrics and neonatal emergency care, among others. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met with Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan in Riyadh. Attending the joint ministerial meeting of the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, the two also pledged to continue cooperation to end fighting in Sudan. A U.S. official said earlier that Blinken had an open, candid conversation with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the early hours of Wednesday about a wide range of bilateral issues. The much-anticipated visit comes amid frayed ties due to deepening disagreements on everything from Iran policy to regional security issues, oil prices, and human rights.
Responding to the latest crisis in Sudan, we're continuing to push to silence the guns, address green humanitarian access, to help the Sudanese people realize their demands for a transition to democracy.
Nearly 300 children have been safely rescued from an orphanage in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. They had been staying at the Migoma orphanage, where more than 70 children are reported to have died from hunger and illness since the conflict in Sudan broke out in mid-April. The orphanage is in an area of the city where the conflict has been raging, according to the International Committee of the Red Cross. Aged between 1 month and 15 years, 297 children have been taken to Wad Madani, about 200 kilometers from Khartoum. They are now at a transit center, and the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, is working with the relevant authorities to identify suitable foster families for them. Even as fighting continues in Sudan, the United Nations, along with its partners, are scaling up to reach more people in need. This is according to UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric, who was briefing journalists in New York. He also said the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has facilitated the movement of at least 148 of relief items through various parts of the country.
Even as fighting continues, we, along with our partners, are scaling up to reach more people in need. Since May 24th, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has facilitated the movement of at least 148 trucks carrying some 7,400 tons of relief items to various parts of the country. Ceasefire or not, we will continue to deliver, but we need an end to the violence, and we need an end to the looting of humanitarian facilities, which is completely unconscionable. Our revised humanitarian response plan for Sudan is less than 16% funded. Of the $2.6 billion required for this year's response, we have received just over $400 million.
Welcome back. Today, World Oceans Day will be celebrated worldwide, serving as a poignant reminder of the immense significance of the ocean in our daily lives. Currently, over 800 million people are affected by hunger around the world. Aquatic foods with their high nutritional value emerge as a promising solution to address not only hunger, but also malnutrition. The world's consumption of aquatic food has increased significantly in recent years to over 20 kilograms per capita per year and will continue to rise.
There is not a single problem that we have nowadays, whether it is climate change, whether it is food security, whether it is poverty, that can be solved without considering the oceans as part of the solution. Aquatic foods is a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity not just because of the volume of production, but also because the nutritional composition of aquatic foods is phenomenal in terms of a macronutrient composition, particularly for children and women during the age of pregnancies. That is an important component of aquatic foods, and that's why people are looking at aquatic foods as part of the solution to the problem of hunger and malnutrition. Aquaculture has been the fastest growing food production system for the last 5 decades, from virtually zero 3 or 4 decades ago to now virtually the same production as capture fisheries. So this is what has allowed us to increase aquatic food consumption. In fact, the consumption of aquatic foods has been growing at twice the rate of population growth. So it's making a significant impact into the improvements in nutrition without affecting the ocean. The Blue Transformation Initiative is a vision from FAO that has started with 2 big principles. The first is to accept that aquatic foods are part of the solution to hunger and malnutrition. That's the first. We need to accept that this is part of what we want to do. The second is the recognition that transformation is happening even without us doing anything.
In Nigeria, classical music is not so popular, but violinist Rosaline Anyinye had an idea to grow its acceptance locally. That's when she came up with an orchestra showcasing classical music in Yoruba. Since then, the taste for classical music has been growing among every age group.
At the Lagos Cultural Center, a rapt audience listens to baritone John Onosoliashe perform an operatic song in the Yoruba language about a hapless soldier being admonished for his failure to cook a flavorsome dish of beans. He cooks and there's no pepper, no oil, no salt, no onions. It is bland. What sort of food is this? Sings Onosoliashe, drawing laughter and cheers from an audience accustomed to fairy Nigerian staples such as pepper soup. The scene is part of the opera Kitchen Pictures at a Military Camp, composed by Seun Owoaje. Founder of the Vesta Orchestra, Rosaline Anyinye, says she came up with the idea of the orchestra while she was living in Vienna.
My flat was actually behind the Opera House, and it was always a dream of mine to come home to Nigeria and discover our own classical music. And so I did that. I came home, joined hands with a few friends, and we formed the orchestra. And now we have a foundation that sees to it that young musicians in Lagos have a place to perform music.
Anyinye, who's a violinist, started Vesta Orchestra and Opera Foundation in 2017 in a bid to enliven the classical music scene in Lagos by performing new works by contemporary Nigerian and African composers. As in many Nigerian cities, music is inescapable in Lagos, whose 21 million inhabitants can hear popular songs in the form of phone ringtones, music concerts, or blaring out of speakers on transit buses, but classical music is not well known.
We knew from the beginning that our mission is to educate the people to appreciate again the true Nigerian heritage and the classical music from Europe. And we kept playing and it's like children who keep doing the same beautiful things, and then they finally learn.
And they have continued to grow, drawing in new converts. Kayode Oshundu and Larry Shashore are guests at the performance.
This is my first time attending this kind of event, and I'm so happy that there are events like this in Nigeria, because prior to this I had no idea that there were orchestras in Nigeria. So I'm actually happy. The music was good, everyone was good, and I like the violin a lot, so I'm very, very happy.
It's fantastic. It's great to be able to enjoy different types of entertainment right here at home. So this was just another opportunity to get to do that. And classical music is something that I enjoy, especially classical music that is also grounded in Nigerian musical history.
Half of the program at the event is music by African composers like Shion Waje, Victor Waifo, and Bobby Benson. It is called Afri-Classical Series because they play African classic music and others from the rest of the world. As Aniye would say, with music, you don't have to convince anybody because art has its audience.
And finally, on the program, China's Giant Panda National Park has seen remarkable progress in its conservation of rare animals, thanks to the multiple effective measures taken during the past 1.5 years. The Giant Panda National Park is located in the western region of China, spanning Sichuan, Shanxi, and Gansu provinces, covering a total area of 22,000 square kilometers. It is one of the first batches of national parks in China, established with a view to protecting the rare species by putting related nature reserves in the 3 provinces under a unified management structure. Home to over 70% of China's wild giant pandas, the park is also a protected habitat of thousands of plants and animals. And that's it for The World Today. I'm Susan Ilian. Join us again tomorrow.